Hi Jim, I'm Dave Clank. I've got your package together and I want to go over everything with you first before I pack it up and get it ready to ship. So I'm going to reset the camera and we can go over everything here. The package is going to contain a lot of different pieces and I wanted to go through those now. First, there are the fences. They're made out of mahogany and they're about just under 2 7/8 inches wide, so that when they're put as far apart as they can, you've got more than 8 inches. It's like 8 3/8 inches for your widest drawers. These have to be held in place with machine screws, and I've got enough of those. The machine screws are drilled, or they screw into the housing, which is steel, and that has to be drilled and tapped. So you have a drill and a tap. Additionally, it's very important that the holes align with these grooves. If you tighten down a screw and the screw is rubbing against the groove, it acts like a rack and pinion, so that when you tighten it, it wants to move. So it's important that there be clearance, just the tiniest little bit of clearance, maybe a 32nd of an inch, between the screws and the edges of the grooves in the fences. So to accomplish that, what I've done is set up a little system, a process for you to go through this whole thing. And I'm going to go through that now. These holes where the template, the back fork of the templates go into, I think they're pretty well aligned. So that's going to be the reference. You need to come up from this edge 1 3/16 of an inch on both sides. And if you put a piece of painter's tape across that and drew a line, that would align on my jig with the center of the groove. Then the most critical thing is to make a tiny little mark for the drill to drill in the right alignment. To do that, you need a center punch. And the way this works is you don't have to hold it and then hit it with a hammer. I've got a scrap piece of steel here. Once you have your line, you just put this on the line, find it just where you want it, and then you just push down. And it makes a dent like that. It's much better than having to hit something with a hammer. It's more accurate. So you have one of these. Once you have drilled and tapped the holes in the top, you need to drill and tap holes on the front. To do that, so that they align with the front, the groove in the front of the fence, I've made a spacer. So you would have these in place with screws in them, not too tight, but holding it in place. And then you would have this aligned with the bottom of the top surface there. And if you could somehow clamp that in place, that bottom edge aligns with the center of the groove. And so that's where you would need to use the painter's tape, maybe draw a line, and then from that use the center punch, the drill, and the tap to get those holes. I've made the fence so that there's no problem accommodating a 4-inch drawer or an 8-inch drawer, I just wanted to point out one thing. It will all work out best because of the geometry of the pins and the tails. If that could be 4 1/8 inches and 8 1/8 inches, that the reasoning behind all that is found in the owner's manual, but it allows the dovetails to have equally sized pins on the top and the bottom of the drawer parts. They look better and everything's more professional. That has to do with symmetry and the fact that you got to flip this thing 180 degrees so that if you don't have that extra 1/8 inch, the pins aren't going to be symmetrical. I don't know if you're going to be doing half blinds, but if you are going to be doing half blind dovetails, you need 1/2 inch spacers. One up here, one down here. You would hold those in place with tape, and that would create the offset that you need because you're doing the sides and the top or the front, drawer front, at the same time. And so I've made you a set of those. Lastly, I don't know if you've had good luck with these knurled knobs and maybe some kind of way to measure between there. I've stopped using those. And what I'm using now, let me take these off. The reason I stopped using them is because they didn't hold the position. And if you're doing an 8-inch tall drawer, if the template, when it's in place, if that isn't perfectly parallel to the edge of the board, even just a tiny bit, you have problems fitting things together and you've got gaps and stuff like that. What I'm doing now is I've made up these blocks. They have a big hole in the back that goes over this nut, and then they've got a through hole to go over the rod. And by putting those in place first, and you have to get this dimension just right, so I use the knurled knobs to adjust to find that dimension, and then I make these to that right size. That way, when you have your template in place, and I use like 2 of these on each side. Actually, I'm using nuts instead of these, but the point I'm trying to make is that if you have 2 of them jam nutted together, maybe with pliers, that's really going to be a much more durable alignment. Things aren't going to wiggle out of place for you. So that is everything that I have. I think you should be fine with it. I'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Last point is that if you use I have the machine screws. If you use the machine screws in the holes, they're just under 3/4 of an inch. It's better if you can use the washers, but I don't know if they're going to get in the way because the screw head will be a tiny bit taller than the 3/4 inch thickness of your drawer parts. That might be a problem. I don't think so, because all you're going to have is this behind it clamping the board in place. So that should be fine. But if for whatever reason it isn't, you can use these without the washer. I just think they work a little bit better with the washer. The head will dent the mahogany, and then you get kind of these little dents in here. It shouldn't be a problem. If it is, we'll just work it out later. But that's it. I'm going to wait a day for you to review this video. Then I'm going to tally things up, figure out what the shipping is, send you an invoice, and hopefully get this shipped in the next few days. Thank you. So when I was talking about these blocks, I didn't show them to you. Here they are. I've made them up so you have several different ones to use, so you can have different dimensions this way for different settings. The way to do it is to figure out what you need by using the template with the knurled brass knobs. Get that dimension, and then on the table saw you rip this down to that dimension and cross-cut what you need. So I gave you quite a few so that if you have to do something over or whatever, you've got extras. It's also quite a bit safer not to have little pieces going through the table saw. Lastly, I make little shims out of cardboard, or sometimes like a cereal box cardboard. And if you need to adjust things, I put them, the shims, between the block and the front fork of the template. And that way you can kind of dial it in if you need to do that. And that's it. That's the whole package.